So here we are in the spring of 2019, and here at UTEP, we've been celebrating a lot of things, but 30 years as president, and in the department, we've been celebrating 25 years of our doctoral program in psychology. So I so appreciate you sitting down to talk about these milestones with me, and I was hoping we could start with the 30 years. I've heard you say so many times, it's the right thing to do, and it stuck with me. Why is now the right time, right thing to do to, after 30 years, step down?
Actually, I don't have the answer to that question because it's very hard to identify a right time for retiring, especially after 30 years. I mean, could have been last year, could have been next year, but 30 just sounded like a nice round number, and I figured, okay, I might as well retire at this point. I mean, there are certain milestones, 30 would be one. And so, I love what I do, and I could keep doing it, but the question is how long? And finally, you have to say, well, maybe I ought to try something different and change a pace, and that'll be good.
What are some of the things that haven't changed in 30 years at UTEP and some of the major differences that you can tell me about?
Well, 30 years ago, we set as two goals, bold goals, I would say, that we would try to mirror the demographics of the surrounding region. We're a public university. We wanted our demographics to be aligned because we believe that talent crosses all boundaries, gender, ethnicity, race, socioeconomic level, neighborhood, everything. And we weren't educating all of El Paso. There were major pieces of the county that weren't being touched very much by UTEP. So that was one goal. Let's look like UTEP. If talent is everywhere, we should look like the community. And then the second bold goal was to become a strong research university because we recognized that if you create access to a university but you don't offer the quality that will add value to the student's diploma upon graduating, you've not really served them all that well. You've given them an opportunity, but you haven't really given them that self-confidence and the competence to go on and do great things. And so those two goals are considered to be by many people incompatible, that you have to choose one or the other because resources aren't adequate to do both. And so we said, well, it doesn't matter what people say, we've got to try to do both because we're out here in a relatively isolated, historically underserved region. We gotta figure it out. It's up to us. And so those are the two things that I think I'm most excited about because after 30 years, we do look like El Paso. Our student demographics, 80% Hispanic, mirror those of the surrounding community. And we reached that R1, that very, very prestigious R1 designation in the Carnegie classification this year. And so we've managed to achieve both. And now we've become a kind of national model, which is pretty exciting.
Very exciting, absolutely. Other than those two, what would you say have been some of the greatest successes and achievements over those 30 years? Those are big ones, but what else?
Well, within that, I think we've been able to build a very strong set of relationships with the public schools, with the community college, to ensure that the pathway between pre-K and the university is smooth. Without speed bumps, without barricades, it's a pathway that we've all studied and tried to conform with so that students who take pre-calculus at high school A aren't told, no, your pre-calculus doesn't count because it's not the same as our pre-calculus. And so we've tried to integrate the faculty from pre-K through 16 and to agree that a course called pre-calculus really is the same anywhere you take it. And we've looked at the data on student performance in calculus and worked our way back, and we've identified high schools which seem to have a problem with that. And so then we're able to intervene and help them either give some opportunity for mentoring for a teacher or the culture of the school, whatever it might be. So we're working at a very granular level with our ecosystem. And I think many universities don't do that. They tend to be in isolation from the schools and all the rest of it. But 80% of our students come from El Paso County, and 80%, roughly 75% of the teachers are our graduates. So it's a closed loop. I mean, if you start blaming each other, you end up with the finger back at you, right? So it just didn't make any other sense except to make sure that that coalition really has cohered. And for the past now 27 years or so, we still meet everything twice a semester. Community college school superintendents, myself, all of us together, business community, and we work together to look at the data. We don't sit around in a pine. We look at the data. So that's been huge. And then the other thing is the development of our doctoral programs on the research side. So on the access side, I would say it's that kind of integration of education at all levels. And then on the research side, it's the doctoral programs. I mean, that made a huge difference. And you may know, I'm sure you do, that in 1988 we were what is called a single doctoral granting institution. That was a designation from the Higher Education Coordinating Board that told us that we would never be able to get any more doctoral degrees beyond the geology degree that was approved in the mid-1970s. And then we got very lucky that LULAC and MALDEF brought lawsuit against the state of Texas, unbeknownst to us, that argued that there was a disparate investment between the border region and Dallas-Fort Worth area in graduate education. And the evidence for their case was that in the border region from El Paso to Brownsville, roughly 2 million population, it was one doctoral program, our little DGS. So that was the evidence for their lawsuit. The minute that lawsuit came to our attention, we thought, wow, this is an opportunity for us to test the coordinating board's strength to turn it down. And they didn't turn it down. It was electrical and computer engineering. And all of a sudden we weren't single doctoral granting institution anymore. And the psychology program, of course, the doctoral program was approved in 1993. And that was the first one outside of science and engineering. So liberal arts, and the psychology department in particular, took the lead because psychology among all the departments in the College of Liberal Arts had a very strong research commitment and was publishing and doing research and getting grants and all the rest. So the psychology department was selected as our next filing, the third one. And now I'm happy to say we have doctoral programs in every single college and school. So I think those are the wonderful moments where you realize that you've made a breakthrough, right? And you've managed to fight off a rule that didn't seem reasonable to us, but which was being used in a lot of ways to keep us from growing and developing as an institution, which makes no sense to me, by the way. But we broke through, and then other institutions began to do the same. But we now have 22 doctoral programs dispersed across the whole campus, so every college faculty has doctoral opportunities, and it's made all the difference in the world.
It's changed immensely because of that, because of the barriers that were broken through.
Right.
Were there barriers, or what were the barriers to the psychology? If I turn to psychology now 25 years ago, what were the barriers that you encountered there?
Well, I think the faculty was really hungry for a doctoral degree, and psychology worked fairly closely at that time with chemistry, or the faculty worked together. And psychology was the department that was ready to do doctoral education. There was an appetite for it, there was capacity, there was some level of research, funded research, and all of those meant that we could build on those foundations and develop a really first-rate doctoral program, which I think we certainly have.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We've got 5 different areas now within the doctoral program. We've got behavioral neuroscience, bilingualism, language and cognition, health, legal, and social psychology. And all of them are really research and grant active. How have they, today and up until today, complemented the UTEP mission and what we're striving to do here in the bigger picture.
What's interesting about the psychology breadth of programs is that they touch all sorts of other colleges and graduate students, collaborations between biology and psychology, or different collaborations among and across all the campus, among the colleges. And so I think psychology really played a key role in kind of moving us to the next level, not only in terms of breadth, but also in terms of just the many dimensions that psychology could bring to doctoral education, and specifically to the College of Liberal Arts.
Sure. Were there or are there folks that you remember stories about that are still with us as faculty, or were students and came back as faculty, or any of those ring a bell?
Well, I think those are always dangerous, right?
Okay.
because there are a lot of funny things that happen along the way, and we all joke about them, but I'm not sure how they'd feel if I start recounting all of these funny experiences. But I've always enjoyed working with the psychology faculty, whether I was in the dean's office or in the provost's office or in this office. It's just a very interesting and very intellectually alive group. And I really like the faculty. There seems to be an esprit. People know each other. There's frequent kind of visitors and seminars and stuff, which I think really bring people together. For a while, when I was Dean of Liberal Arts, worried that psychology really wanted to be in the College of Science, that they didn't want to be in liberal arts. And that became a quest for me to demonstrate to psychology that liberal arts was really a good place for them.
Home.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, well, I think I had some cooperation actually, but it was interesting that there was a sense that psychology was so different from the humanities and fine arts. Of course it is. Mm-hmm. But and psychology was the only department really doing any kind of laboratory research in the College of Liberal Arts. But back then it was pretty limited, and we really had to focus on our assets. And I didn't want to lose psychology at that point, because I knew how important it was to the College of Liberal Arts to make that breakthrough, and to UTEP more generally.
So we're celebrating 25 years of the doctoral program. What would you envision for the next 25 years for psychology?
Well, we're all getting old, I mean, that's what happens. We all retire eventually, and you have got some retired emeritus faculty who are just extraordinary people.
Absolutely.
Wonderful people. But I think over the next 25 years, I think one of the very exciting areas is neuroscience. I think that is obviously right now very important nationally and globally, really. And we've got some great people doing neuroscience. And then I think the other area that to me is extremely important is social psych. With all of the divisions in our society, I think there's just a tremendous opportunity to understand better how all this happens and how we can devolve into polarized segments of the population. And so mental health is obviously another area because of all the addiction problems that point to the neuroscience research,
Sure.
but also to the mental health side. And I think psychology has a very bright future. So I think psychology is one of the really rising stars in terms of relevance to today's problems.
Absolutely. When we think of those social issues you just talked about, that can link to border security,
Absolutely.
Health, all of those issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you see for the next 30 years at UTEP? What are the things left to do?
Well, I think we have to continue to work on the access issue, because only 51% of the high school graduates in this region go on to post-secondary education. And a lot of this is a Hispanic population that wasn't educated to go to college.
Right.
And the attitude was that they would continue to work in low-wage, low-skilled jobs. And our big challenge has been to empower our students to high aspirations, to be the best students that they can be and have the best careers possible. So it's kind of breathtaking once in a while to think about all the issues that go well beyond just the institutional mission and the accomplishments. There are all these peripheral issues. So we just have to be thinking hard about that and never forgetting the population that we're supposed to serve.